Good evening. Today we're going to be looking at how Dimension has created such a unique sound for himself. He has managed to fuse house and drum and bass in a way that has created a sound that is distinctly his own. And we're going to be breaking down what exactly those influences are and how he's applying it to his productions. I want to thank my boy Tom for the inspiration for this video. Rest in peace, brother. I don't know why I said that. He's not dead. Let's get into it. So the first thing to say about the genius, about what Dimension is doing, is the 909 drum kit, which are the drum samples that exist in the imagination as the quintessential house sounds. Him using those samples means that we already have a reference point in our mind for that specific sound, and it means that it's easy to hear that it's a house influence that he's drawing from. So you could do a similar thing with modern type splice samples, but maybe it wouldn't come across in the same way because those samples are less recognizable. And the 909 is super recognizable. It exists in the collective consciousness of us all who have heard house songs. So that I think that's one of the parts of the genius of it, is using the root samples, the samples that we all know and have been used throughout all of the traditional and classic house songs. So let's see what he's doing. So we're going to do something different today. We're going to start off by making a house beat, and then we're going to transition into drum and bass to see how similar the setup of his production actually is a house song, in some sense, just sped up. So let's get into it. So in Ableton, we have this 909 core kit, which we're going to be using. And these are 909 samples that I assume have been taken from a 909 drum kit. So if we start by creating a house drum beat, and we're starting at 125 BPM. So what we're doing is we're putting a kick on every beat, and then a snare on every other beat. And then we'll put a hi-hat in between every kick. And another thing you see typically in house is the 4 crashes before a drop. And you can even do the same with the kick as well. We might put some offbeat ghost notes with the snare. So that is the foundation for our house drum rhythm. And it's very typical in house to use an offbeat bass. So let's do that. Generally, a classic house bass is using a saw wave with a filter on it. So if we stick a filter on LFO 1 on the cutoff. So there we have the foundation of a house beat. So let's slowly transition that into drum and bass. So let's take the tempo up. So the moment sounds a little bit happy hardcore. First thing we'll do is we'll change the kick pattern. And let's introduce some different samples so it does sound a little bit more drum and bass like, but we'll keep the core of the sound being this 909 kit. So I've just switched out the kick so it sounds a little bit more hard hitting and more drum and bassy. And traditionally, the 909 snare is used a lot in drum and bass and things like dubstep because of the 200 hertz kick that it's got. So it's a low end and powerful frequency for your snares to hit. So let's keep that in. And then we can add some more drum and bass sounding snares on top of that. So now we're starting to see the transition from the house beat into this drum and bass. So let's add a couple of hi-hats on top of that and a few tops just to introduce more of that drum and bass sound. So what I've done is added a couple of open hi-hats on the first beat and the second beat. And then a few tops on top of that. And we can see that the offbeat snares that we put in earlier are contributing the same rhythm that you would get in a drum and bass song. These get. And if we add this bass back in and slightly change the sound design so it has a bit more of a drum and bass feel to it. So maybe we'd use this I Can Has kick. And we're still using this same technique of the LFO affecting this filter. So let's put a little bit of processing on there. And one thing I noticed that Dimension does, I've looked into the waveforms of his songs and they're all hitting on grid. So none of them are slightly off the beat like that. But the way that he creates the groove is changing the length of the notes. So often I'll hear that he's elongating the first two and then maybe shortening the third and maybe elongating the fourth a little bit. So even though it's a static rhythm, you're getting some variation in the length of the notes, which creates that differentiation and helps to add to the groove. So I've just added a few of the synths that I used in the Dimension video that I made to hopefully indicate how this would sound as a more fully fledged song. And if you haven't seen that video already, go and check it out, because you can download the project file for free and have a look under the hood as to how I did all of that. So after we've gone through the transition from a basic house beat to this drum and bass sound, this is the kind of sound that you might land on. And there we have it, a drum and bass song that has been influenced primarily by house. And I put it to you, sir. How can we be doing this in our productions? How can we take influences from different genres, using samples and techniques that are traditionally used in other genres, and be applying that to a drum and bass production that hopefully will give us a more unique sound in the same way that Dimension is doing for his sound. Love to your mothers. Thank you.